Welcome to tonight's chilling tale collection, where we journey deep into the heart of the desert, where reality blurs and the unknown awaits. From campers who vanish without a trace, to a phantom car that haunts lonely highways, to a ghost town still echoing with sorrowful music. These are 3 true desert horror stories you won't forget. Let the silence of the sand speak, if you dare to listen. Story 1. The Vanishing Campers. It was 2012 when a group of my friends and I decided to embark on a desert camping trip. We were experienced hikers and had explored several rugged terrains, but there was something about the vast, empty silence of the desert that both excited and unnerved us. The desert in question was the Mojave, a place known for its extreme temperatures and isolation. We arrived at the designated campsite late in the afternoon, setting up our tents and preparing for the night under the stars. The desert air was dry and crisp, and the sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and red, casting long shadows across the sandy dunes. We sat around the campfire, laughing and chatting, but as night fell, a strange feeling began to creep over me. Around midnight, one of my friends, Sarah, mentioned hearing faint whispers in the wind. We all laughed it off as the wind playing tricks on us, but then things started to feel off. I remember looking around and realizing that the desert was eerily still. There were no sounds of animals, no rustling in the bushes, just an unnatural silence. Around 2 a.m., we all decided to turn in for the night, but just as I was about to fall asleep, I heard something that made my blood run cold. Footsteps in the sand, faint but unmistakable. I grabbed my flashlight and crawled out of the tent, expecting to find one of my friends walking around. But when I scanned the area, there was no one in sight. The campfire had burned out, and the desert stretched out before me in an infinite sea of dark sand. I called out their names, but there was no response. I rushed over to the other tents, shaking them awake, but they were completely empty. Our backpacks, food, and gear were all gone. Panic set in as we searched the area, but there was no sign of any of my friends. It was as if they had just vanished into thin air. We called for help, and a search team was sent out to look for them. We combed the desert for hours, but no one was ever found. The only clue we had was a single footprint that seemed to lead into the vast empty dunes. An eerie, perfect print that suddenly stopped. To this day, no one knows what happened to them. Some locals say the Mojave Desert has a way of swallowing people whole, taking them into its deep, unforgiving silence. Story 2. The Phantom Car. I had been working as a truck driver for years, but the desert roads were always the hardest part of my routes. One particularly lonely stretch took me through the Arizona desert, miles away from any civilization. The road was deserted at night, and the air felt heavier, as if something unseen was waiting just beyond the horizon. It was a cold, clear night when I noticed the headlights in my rearview mirror. I had just passed through a small desert town, and there were no other cars around. I thought it was strange, considering how isolated this stretch of highway was. The vehicle behind me was gaining on me quickly. I could see the headlights growing brighter in my mirror, so I decided to pull over to the side and let it pass. But the car never passed. I stayed on the side of the road for a few minutes, watching the headlights approach. It got closer and closer, but when I checked my mirror again, there was no car in sight. I thought I had imagined it, but the air felt suddenly thick, almost suffocating. I continued on my way, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling, but then it happened again. The headlights appeared in my rearview mirror. This time, I sped up, hoping to outrun whatever it was. But no matter how fast I drove, the car kept getting closer. I could feel its presence in my rearview mirror, the headlights never wavering, always just behind me. I pulled over again, terrified. The headlights came closer, and I braced myself for whatever would happen next. But when I turned around to look, The car was nowhere to be seen. There were no tire tracks, no dust kicked up by the wheels, just the cold, empty desert stretching in every direction. I was shaken to my core, but I couldn't stop. I had to finish my route. But I could never forget that phantom car, always there in my rearview mirror, a silent specter on the empty desert roads. To this day, I drive with the unsettling knowledge that sometimes, when the desert night is quiet enough, the spirits of the lost roam the roads. Story 3. The Desert Ghost Town. In 2009, I found myself on an expedition with a small team of historians and archaeologists to explore an abandoned ghost town deep in the California desert. The town had been abandoned for over 50 years, its buildings left to deteriorate under the brutal sun. It was once a thriving mining town, but after the resources dried up, the people left, and the town was swallowed by the desert. We arrived just before dusk, and as we made our way through the dilapidated streets, I felt like we were walking in the footsteps of ghosts. The wind howled through the empty windows, and the buildings stood like hollow skeletons, their wooden beams creaking in the wind. We made our way to the old saloon, the last building that still had its roof intact. The atmosphere was oppressive, and the air smelled of dust and decay. As we entered the saloon, I could feel the temperature drop significantly. It was as though the room had been locked in time, the dust still undisturbed, the faded wallpaper peeling off the walls. But then, something strange happened. I heard the faint sound of piano music, soft, melancholy, almost haunting, coming from somewhere deep within the saloon. My heart skipped a beat. There was no power in the town, no reason why there should be any music. My colleagues and I exchanged uneasy glances. I knew we weren't alone. We followed the sound of the music, our footsteps echoing in the silence. We reached the back room, where the music seemed to come from, but there was no piano. Only an old, empty room with a shattered window. Yet the music continued, clear and faintly sorrowful. That's when we saw her. A woman, pale and translucent, was sitting at the piano that wasn't there, her fingers moving over the keys in a way that was both graceful and sorrowful. Her eyes were vacant, staring into nothingness, her face frozen in a permanent expression of loss. She wore a white dress, tattered at the edges, as if time had worn her down to a ghost of her former self. We couldn't move, paralyzed by a mix of fear and fascination. The music played on, each note seeming to draw us closer. But just as I took a step toward her, she stopped playing. Her head slowly turned toward us, her eyes locking onto mine. I felt a chill run through my body, as if the air itself had turned to ice. And then, without a sound, she vanished, dissolving into the air like smoke. The music stopped immediately. We left the ghost town in a hurry, too terrified to stay any longer. I've never been able to explain what we saw that day, but I know one thing for sure. The desert holds secrets. Some of them are lost to time, but others, like the ghost of the woman in the saloon, are waiting for someone to uncover them. And sometimes, those secrets don't want to be found.